We have really great sponsors like the San Gabriel Valley Economic Partnership. Sponsor us, and we will promote you on the show too. Now we are going to talk a little bit about the Morning Buzz, or we are going to talk about the Morning Buzz.
We're going to be talking about the Republican National Convention.
Absolutely. And so that's pretty exciting. We just wrapped that up, and there was a lot that went on there.
Yes, a lot of stuff happened.
So we invited a guest. We invited Derek Georgino.
Yes, Derek Georgino.
Thank you for being on with us.
Thank you for having me back, guys. Love being here.
So what are your thoughts on this whole convention?
It was It was great. It was a great 4 days. There were a lot of great speeches. There was some controversy as well. All in all, I thought we got to hear from some really strong conservatives during that convention. I thought the values of the party were pretty well addressed by many of the speakers. The platform for this election cycle for the GOP is perhaps more conservative, or the most conservative it has been since Reagan was running for president. And so there was a lot of important points made in a lot of different speeches during this RNC, and I think it was definitely a good show, and I think it was very substantive as well.
What are your thoughts on Melania and
That whole
how much that
scandal,
was
yeah.
paralleled with Michelle Obama's speech?
Well, look, Barack Obama plagiarized several times while he was running for president. He plagiarized John Edwards. He plagiarized another person running for office. It happens. The speechwriter came out, claimed responsibility for it, apologized. And regardless, I mean, the words she had to say were good. They were good words. And whether they were the same as Michelle's or not, I have to be honest, I believe them more out of the mouth of Melania than I do out of the mouth of Michelle Obama. And so while that was a little hit for the Republicans, and it was covered heavily in the media.
There doesn't seem to be any negative impact from it, any blowback.
No, because I think Donald Trump handled it quite well. You know, and he did what Donald Trump normally does, like, look, what's the big deal? You know, look, we're going to move on.
Right.
You know, and I thought he handled it well.
I understand he did not take the resignation of the writer, the speechwriter, too. I believe that speechwriter presented her resignation. He said absolutely not.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know what goes on behind the scenes with that. I probably would have let that speechwriter go, personally. But who knows what goes on behind the scenes. I mean, it was claimed to be an accident. I'm not sure how you accidentally plagiarize necessarily. I know when I just graduated from college, I know that if I were to plagiarize during college, which I never did, it would be hard for it to be an accident.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, he didn't let the speechwriter go. He was very understanding, and
so you put footnotes. If you put something
down,
yeah,
I mean, you cite it.
Maybe she should have put footnotes.
You know, they say in doubt, quote, use quotes.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to be citing Michelle Obama during the Republican National Convention.
So what else? What about his children? What were your
Donald
thoughts
Trump
about
Jr. endorsed him, and he got a pretty good positive ovation from that.
I thought his children did a pretty good job. I was quite surprised that every one of his kids were able to, well, not kids, they're adults, but every single one of them were able to speak quite well. I don't think you see that very often. I don't think you see that very often in a presidential candidate who's, you know, every single one of their offspring is able to give a good speech. They were all very good public speakers, I felt. Mm-hmm. And I thought that helped them out.
Are they a united family with several children from different wives? Do they appear to be a united family?
Well, that's difficult. In appearance, they appear to be a united family. I mean, I'm not going to speak for, you know, for the Trump family and what goes on behind the scenes there as well. But it did appear as a united family. I thought Donald Trump Jr. gave a pretty great speech. I thought Eric Trump did a good job as well, and I thought Ivanka did a decent job as well.
No, they said that his son clenched the final delegates for his father. Was that true?
I'm not sure. That's what they were saying. I mean, he had the nomination regardless, so who actually, you know, clenches the last delegates and whatnot is, I'm not so sure how important that is in terms of the nomination process, but he gave a pretty good speech. He gave a solid speech.
I think the public received him well. I think they were impressed with his persona and the way he supported his father in the process.
They did. Look, a person's number one fear in the United States is public speaking. So when every single one of your children can go up there and give a pretty solid speech, I think it tells as to how they were raised. I think in appearance they were raised pretty well, and they were very strong speakers.
How about Donald's speech? What do you think about what the Donald had to say?
It was a very long speech. It was very long. I remember when I was watching it live, I watched it about first 20 minutes of it. I listened to the first 20 minutes of it, and then you know, I went to my buddy's house. We turned it on the television, but this was like an hour later, and he was still speaking.
Going.
And I used to be a sports broadcaster in college, and I don't know that I could be on a podium in front of all those thousands of people and be speaking for that long. But to be fair, after every phrase that he has said, huge applause was emitted. So applause takes up time, as we know. But it was a very long speech, but I thought it touched on just about everything. A lot of people are criticizing because they don't feel he mentioned the Constitution specifically enough, although I thought he mentioned enough of the values that the Constitution encompasses. He mentioned the Second Amendment, of course. He mentioned national security. He touched a little bit on states' rights, which is something that's not touched upon enough by Republicans these days. I think the 10th Amendment and how it's come under attack, although he didn't reference the 10th Amendment specifically. But all in all, I thought it was a solid speech.
Do you think he presented his platform clearly enough?
I think so. I think the issue is going to be, though, his platform versus the GOP platform that was adopted. You know, he's kind of brought the economic message of protectionism, tariffs, you know, kind of forcing businesses to not move abroad rather than attracting businesses to do business back here. And that's different from the GOP platform, which is not protectionist. It's more free market capitalist. So there's some discrepancies.
It'll be interesting that way because obviously as a business owner, you would take advantage of whatever is presented to you to be able to go abroad and take advantage of those situations. So it'll be interesting to see what he comes up with as far as making those changes so that we can bring jobs back to America.
Right.
Derek, Georgino, thank you very much for being on today.
I was happy to be here as always.
Will you join us for another Morning Buzz?
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Coming up next, the great comedian, Mr. Cott, Bill Cott, coming up.
He's going to introduce us to the power of yes. That should be pretty interesting.
I think it will. He's always interesting. Up next.